You want to give me a prediction for July 29th?
Victor. I've been giving it to you all day.
Oh, no. I just thought maybe you'd give me a round or something.
Listen, however it comes.
However it comes.
Just know that at the end of the day, my hand will be rosing.
Terence "Bud" Crawford probably just put in one of the all-time great performances against Errol Spence Jr. He was so mentally composed, his timing was on point, he had pop in his jab, great speed, fought in his own rhythm, controlled the pace, and proved he had power and strength. For me, it was just a complete systematic breakdown of Spence in the end. And despite Spence being the slight underdog going into this, I do feel the majority expected a much closer fight from a fighter who was in the top 5 pound for pound before the fight, myself included. But in this video I want to break down how the fight went down and what Crawford did so well to get the victory. Now, because this fight was just on pay-per-view and Showtime, I'm going to have to use other footage from ringside, otherwise it'll most likely get taken down for copyright. But a big shout out to DNA Show, who filmed the whole fight and was there, and make sure to check out his YouTube channel and subscribe. So on that note, let's get right into it. Now, the first thing I wanted to see was what if Crawford would come out southpaw or orthodox, and Bud's team, in my opinion, made the right decision with that southpaw stance. And in typical Crawford nature, he looked to download what was in front of him. And Spence, from the looks of things, was trying to establish his own jab and apply early pressure, whereas Crawford was mainly measuring out with his own jab, seeing how Spence would react, while also maintaining a very disciplined higher guard to help block and catch shots, while parrying away with the backhand. Not to mention, he was also feinting, moving his head off the centre line, and when Spence used the jab, all Crawford had to do was take a step back and move laterally to his right again to establish his position. Now keep this in mind for the next round, as this is where it all really changed. So, after a relatively good first round for Spence, the next round we saw him come out quite aggressive again. But one big issue I noticed was, whenever Spence was throwing that jab at times, he of course was lunging in and planting that front foot. There was always the danger of him getting countered. And because Crawford was just taking a step back in the first round after Spence threw the jab, Spence clearly felt comfortable using the exact same movement. And as we all know, Crawford is a highly intelligent fighter. He picks up on habits, and in most cases that's why he starts quite slow. He's trying to figure out what his opponent is doing. And in that second round, he clearly picked up that Spence was lunging in with the jab and planting that front foot and overreaching, leaving him in a very vulnerable position at times. And it wasn't like Inoue's body jab, which we saw versus Fulton, which was quick, sharp and powerful with in and out movement to help avoid the counter. Spence instead was not moving quickly out of range when throwing a body jab, for example, or was even defensively responsible. Just before that first knockdown, Crawford clearly picked up the timing and movement just before the first knockdown, and was able to time and block the punch with his arms before throwing the cross power jab combo. A similar counter he has used in the past versus southpaws lunging in. Now sure, it looked like a flash knockdown, but I really do think he hurt Spence in this moment, and his legs for me just seemed really unsteady even going into that third round. And at this point we started to see the best work of Terence Crawford behind that right-handed power jab instead of him using a flick jab. And this was something he pointed out as a tactic going into the fight to take away Spence's own jab. And this is what Crawford said after the fight about it.
Let me ask you about your ability to take away Errol Spence's jab. Was that the game plan?
Well, yeah, Errol Spence, he's a tremendous talent. He got a great jab, and we was worried about the jab coming in because that's how he set up all his shots off the jab, you know, and so our main focus was the jab. You take away his best attribute, and then, you know, the rest is history.
I was sitting next to Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson said, Terence Crawford's jab is like a battering ram. What's your assessment of what he had to say about how you were able to, and then we'll take a look at that knockdown where you hit him with that jab.
Well, we practiced that. You know, normally in camp, we do a flicking jab, but we knew that wasn't going to work with Errol Spence because he's durable, he's strong. So we had to practice on a strong, firm jab, the jab with him, and then stop him in his tracks.
And due to Crawford's better defensive movement, he was really just able to have more patience and time Spence with his own power jab. And Spence tried to push the fight, trying to get on the inside and apply pressure, and this simply just led to more opportunities for Bud. Spence, for all the credit he gets for being so fundamentally sound, was in actual fact leaving himself open constantly, throwing the backhand and getting countered multiple times with both hands from Crawford, as the majority of Spence's combos start with that jab, and Crawford either just had to catch or block the shot with the high guard before throwing a lead hook, or just take a slight step back before countering with the left hand, and it was helped by the fact Spence would also square up, making it very easy for Crawford to counter him and even hurt him when he was off balance. And even for the second knockdown, it was fantastic from Crawford just to see him change up the counter with that right uppercut followed by a right hook. And it was just an incredible display of counter-punching from Crawford. I guess the other area at which I was really impressed was just Bud in the pocket, and for the most part he did a fantastic job staying off the ropes at times, and instead looked to clinch in the centre of the ring with Spence, and really outmatched him here and was able to really block, catch, parry and counter anything thrown at him, and really outmuscle him at times. Seeing Crawford in these positions just reminded me of Crawford in the Avanesium fight back in December, and now in hindsight, this was actually a very good preparation fight leading into this one, as he was using all these defensive movements and actions in the pocket. And mentally I imagine that would have been really tough for Spence to deal with, as he's considered the stronger and more superior fighter in the inside to Crawford. And when it came to that 7th round where Crawford got the 2 knockdowns, at that point you just felt like he knew he was going to win and take him out at some point. In the 8th round he completely took it off, slowing down the pace of the fight, fighting on the terms he wanted to, as once again he waited for Spence to commit and counter him. And at that point I think we all knew it was over for Spence. He looked deflated, desperate, and no answer to Terence Crawford. Personally, I felt it was a good stoppage by the referee in the 9th round. You just have to look at Spence's face after the fight to see what a beatdown this was from one of the best welterweights we've seen in recent times. And I think this performance is clear that Crawford has cemented his legacy as one of the very best, the first male to become undisputed in the 4-belt era, and it's some incredible achievement. He proved tonight he's a complete fighter, and one thing is for sure, we definitely witnessed greatness last night, and no one can tell me otherwise. For Spence, well, I think that's a whole other video, but every fighter needs a dance partner, and of course, he kept pushing and trying to make something happen. And although he wasn't at the races, you need to show him respect. And even if the fight takes place at 154 pounds in the rematch, there's always the potential it could be an even worse beating for Errol Spence. But yeah guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the fight. What did you make of Terence Crawford's performance? And what impressed you the most? And of course, what do you think Errol Spence should do next? I'd love to know. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. As always guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Shout out to all the haters and doubters. My boy Undisputed. 2 times.